everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Tech. I am Seth Johnson, and I'm joined as usual by co-host Jason Griffin. Jason, how's it going, man?
It's going great, Seth. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Recovering from your birthday?
Yeah, just a little. Too much cake.
Oh, sure.
Well, I mean, I think birthdays come around once a year, but man, I think you got the bigger news. You're a proud homeowner.
I am, yes. As we sit here and record, we had our closing today, and I'm happy to say that everything went smoothly. So my wife and I are officially homeowners for the first time, and we are very excited about it.
Congrats, man. I'm going to have to edit in some like cheering and applause or something like that. So congratulations.
As long as you lay in some birthday music there for you as well, then yeah, that'd be good.
And maybe I just avoid it all. Well, congratulations. That's a big one.
Thank you. We're very excited. It's obviously a very big deal, and now that we're through that portion of it, we're just getting our eyes up and looking to the move and trying to figure out how we're going to make all that work and things. It's just going to be another busy summer at the Griffin house, but all good things. So very excited.
Well, yeah, the move across country will be nothing, like moving across town. So
yeah, exactly.
You've been there, done that. You can take care of this, and you'll be in your new home before too long.
Before you know it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of home, you're not the only one with the new home. Google has a new home.
Yeah, huge news, and we're going to spend this episode. We don't have a guest lined up, and you and I are just we're going to catch up. Lots to talk about this week, and really it all comes in under the umbrella of voice control. Huge topic right now, and Google has officially entered the market with Google Home, their competitor to Amazon Echo that we were speculating on recently, and here we are. So I'm excited to talk about it with you, get your thoughts on it. Yep.
I'm going to have to ring the bell on this one. Oh. That's actually air freshener. Hold on. There's the bell. Sorry.
Oh, the air freshener. That's good. In case people don't know, we should probably explain.
Yeah. So Google had their Google I/O event, and they one of the very first products out of the gate that they introduced is this Google Home product, and it looks just like one of those air wick freshener things that you sit in the corner of the house.
It does,
which is good, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I saw that tweet going around. It went viral. I forget the guy's name, but he's the guy. He started a website called Product Hunt that some people listening have probably heard of before, and he put out a tweet that made a joke about how the Google Home product looked like an air freshener, and I thought it was pretty funny. But I did read Mike Wolf's article, which we'll probably mention a few times here. And he made a great point that to Google, that is probably not an insult, but rather a compliment. They really did want this thing to look like something that belonged out in your home. So I think they hit the mark there.
Yeah, me too. That's exactly the reason why. I mean, from a design standpoint, if you walked into someone's house, your friend's house, and they had this sitting over there on the coffee end table, you may just look past it and not recognize it as a Google Home product. You may just think it's an air freshener. So it blending into the house. I mean, that's and not standing out as some kind of techie geeky product. I mean, huge win on that's thumbs up on my end. I can't agree more with what they've done with the design. But yeah, I did see the air freshener thing and thought I'd bring that up. But
I like it. Well, let's talk, Seth, about some of the bullet points here, and let's not assume. I'm sure most people have, but let's not assume that everybody in the audience has been following the news, is up to speed with Google Home, and just touch on some of the bullet points. If you are familiar with Amazon Echo, it's a direct competitor. So a stationary device that you plug in, you set it on the counter or on the nightstand or what have you, and it's a voice-activated AI assistant. And you can do things like play music, manage everyday tasks, set calendar events, reminders, and of course, control selected smart home devices. And that's obviously what makes it particularly significant to the home tech space and the smart home, and we'll be very curious to see the direction that Google goes with that. It's supposed to start shipping later this summer, and interestingly, not under the Nest umbrella, which I think is a very interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, especially with the news coupled today where Nest either lost or fired. No one's really saying right now, but their two lead salespeople, one guy was North American sales, the other guy was some other sales position. They're no longer at Nest. This is just an insult. I think like this is a slap in the face with where is Nest? I mean, when I was watching this and one of the Chromecast team leader person came out, the Chromecast is the little Google device that, you and I have kind of poked fun at from time to time. Maybe not. I don't know. Like we've kind of joked about it a few times in the past, but evidently it's been selling very well. And the gentleman who introduced this, I didn't write down his name, but he was saying that it's one of Google's best-selling products, the little Chromecast dongles, either for your TV or they make a couple like you can plug into speakers and play audio through them. And it's the Chromecast team, not Nest, that introduces Google Home. I mean, wow, where is Nest? What are they doing over there? This is crazy.
Yeah, it's not insignificant. I would agree with you. I think that if you take Nest out of the equation, the fact that it falls under the Chromecast team is logical. I think one of the primary use cases that'll draw people towards it the same way that people have been drawn towards the Echo is that streaming audio, voice activated house audio functionality. And so I think that's a natural fit. And like you said, the Chromecast has been one of Google's most successful consumer type products. So I think that if you, again, take Nest out of the equation, it makes perfect sense. But the fact that they're doing this, Nest isn't out of the equation. Nest is very much in the equation, or at least, they are part of Alphabet. And it is surprising to me that it really appears to have very little to do with, or nothing really to do with Nest directly.
Yeah. I was shocked when that was going on. I'm like, where is Tony Fadell? Where is the Nest team? And one of the very last things they mentioned was like, oh yeah, and this integrates with Google's Nest thermostats. And I'm going, all right, where's Nest? Where's the rest of this team? Kind of crazy to think about that. They're not even showing up to the developers conference with the Nest thermostats or anything else to bring to the table. I don't know. I guess we'll just move on and not talk about Nest anymore and the problems that they've had, and talk about this really cool product that Google did come out with, Google Home.
Yeah.
So
I think
no more Nest.
Yeah. Fair enough. I think one of the big interesting conversations that was sparked by this, by no surprise, is what does this mean for the Amazon Echo? And there was a lot of reactionary talk on the internet about how this was the ringing the death knell for Echo, and Google, implying that Google's going to come into the space and basically just crush Echo. And I think that I read some interesting pieces on that. I don't think necessarily that this is the end for Echo. Echo's got a huge head start. They're doing things differently. I do think that Google brings a lot to the table in terms of the AI, the artificial intelligence portion of it, that Amazon is going to have a hard time matching, just because people are so immersed in the Google ecosystem. And Google has spent, over a decade, what I think 17 years they were talking about or something, building this huge database and understanding so much about what it is that we do in our daily meetings and interactions and where we're going and what we're searching for. And just that level of context, I think, is going to be really applicable when you're talking about a voice-activated assistant. And so I think that is one thing that Amazon's going to have a hard time competing with.
I 100% agree. Amazon's not even close to matching what Google can do with all of the, we say data, but all of the AI learning and everything they've gotten from that data and what they're really focusing on. Another big thing to think about, too, is Amazon is very, very far behind when it comes to natural language processing. Amazon Echo is, I believe, still only a U.S. product. I'm not 100% unsure, but I'm pretty sure it's only U.S., but it's definitely only English. I mean, you can't speak Spanish to it. And I know that Siri will translate Spanish. I know that Google has plenty of processing. They have plenty of natural language processing for other language outside of English. And Amazon is very, very far behind on that particular part of what what these products do. You know, these little Amazon in a can, or Siri in a can, Google in a can. They've got a lot of catch up to do there. Not saying it's insurmountable and they can't pull it off, because they've definitely done a very good job with the English processing. But I think that they have an uphill road ahead of them, just to get, Amazon's, it's very basic. If you look at what they're showing off in the little demonstration video that Google Home could do, and we say could because we don't really know what it is that it does yet. They showed a plastic one on stage, they showed a bunch of pictures, and they showed a fake video of it working. Now, that you and I know, Jason, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to do that on day one. So, Amazon does a lot of stuff right now. Let's say this is day one. Amazon is definitely ahead, but I think Google is going to surpass and catch up and surpass them a lot quicker than I think most people realize. So I'm going to have to agree with the articles that not the death knell of Amazon, but Amazon is so basic as to what they were doing. It's almost like, to me, Amazon was a command prompt with Echo. Like you're telling it very specific things for it to do. And if you get those exactly right in that order, it works great. And it really works well for that. But Google, man, you can almost talk to it naturally, and it understands what you're trying to do, and either preempts you or does it for you. And that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a key point. You mentioned the video there. We'll include a link to that in the show notes with a timestamp. It's from the Google keynote, and it is very compelling. Now, obviously, like you alluded to, we don't know that it's going to work that well ever, or at least not right out of the box. Some of the things that they were showing in that video were pretty nuanced as far as the way people were speaking to it, just very naturally, and saying, hey, change my dinner reservation to 8:00, and just asking for things the way that you would speak to an actual person, versus like what you're saying with Echo. Things are very rigid. You've got to structure your commands in a certain way and get it just right in order for it to work. And so I do think that, like you said, that natural language processing piece is huge and definitely can't be underestimated. I think that the team at Amazon working on Echo, I'm sure can't be surprised that Google is coming into the space, and I think it probably won't be long until we see Apple do the same thing with Siri in a can, as we've been calling it. And I think it'll just be really interesting to see how these companies take different approaches. And with that in mind, too, one of the things that I was paying attention to, and I alluded to Mike Wolf's article earlier, and I'll mention it here again, is that he talks in that article about the choice by Google to not really come out of the gate with a developer API, as opposed to Amazon, that's really pushing that third-party development. They've got the Alexa fund and all that. And I'd be curious as a developer, Seth, to hear your thoughts on the significance of that.
Well, Amazon didn't come out day one either with a developer SDK. I mean, that came later on. You rarely ever see a entry product come out with SDK.
True.
Period.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be an SDK. That a product. If a product has an SDK, it implies that there's some kind of maturity to the product, and that it can be relied upon. Here's a set of parameters that you can give to a developer. They can write on it, and the product can be relied upon to execute those from now until whenever Google or Amazon or whoever says that SDK is going to go away. But they have to commit to at least it working. If you send a command to it from a public SDK, that the product will actually work back. So I don't think that that's very far out, especially since they announced this product specifically at a developers conference. Some of the things were funny in there. It definitely would integrate. They definitely have dreams of it integrating with maybe like Open Table for dinner reservations. Maybe the Delta website to keep an eye on your flight times. One of the things that just made me kind of chuckle when they were going through it was like, your flight's delayed by 30 minutes, and I don't know about you, Jason, but I've never heard of a flight being delayed by 30 minutes. Like usually it's going to be like 4 hours or canceled.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, and then after that, she says, okay, well, update my dinner reservations with so-and-so. And, the little assistant thing goes out, which this is killer. Like it goes out, updates the dinner reservations, and emails the person, whoever she's having the dinner reservations with, that they'll be later. That's all really cool stuff. And I think one of the biggest things I saw in that video was the little kid saying, show me, tell me about Alpha Centauri, the nearest star to our solar system. And then it says, and then he just says, show me it on the TV. And, boom, pie in the sky. This is, I know this isn't going to happen overnight, but, there on the TV is a video about Alpha Centauri. Like, that's pretty cool.
Right.
And to get that level of integration from the voice and just kind of a kid walking around the house talking to these little air fresheners, I mean, that's killer. I think this product has a giant roadmap. If it works like they want it to work in this video, I think this has got some long legs to it. Like this is going to be around for a while, and this assistant product looks really cool.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's I'm glad you brought up the example of the child standing in front of the TV, and I thought that was interesting as well. And I think it's a 2-part equation really, because the technology has to get there on Google's end in order to be able to make that happen, and also it's equally as important that the end users understand the things that the system is capable of and how to talk to it. And I think that comes back to, when we think about children who are going to grow up with voice control in the home, that's where things I think are really going to get interesting. When you start thinking about where this is all headed 5 or 10 years from now, and you've got a generation of kids who are going to be growing up in a home where talking naturally to a device is going to be part of their childhood. And I just think that is going to be a very interesting thing to keep an eye on. We're projecting out here into the future, but a lot of it just does come down to people getting used to how to use these things and how to maximize it. And that's where some of the more interesting use cases are going to come from. And I watch my 18-month-old daughter operate an iPhone now, and it's incredible to me. We try not to give it to her often, but every now and then she'll get her hands on one and she's swiping around and she's already figured out, which button is the YouTube app. And it's just amazing to me to watch that. And so if you extrapolate from that, you think about children who are growing up with voice control in the home and the use cases that could come from people just starting to think creatively about how to use it. I think it gets very interesting.
Yeah, one of the stories I try and relay to people, and I heard somebody say this a long time ago, and it's just stuck with me. Jason, you're an iParents generation. They started off with 3 channels on their TV, maybe 4 if they were lucky. They were all black and white, mm-hmm. And they maybe at the beginning of their lives, they barely had a TV in the house. If they were lucky enough, they had a TV in their house, and they slowly grew up through an era where kids were being brought in with, there was always a TV in the house. It started off with 3 channels. Now there's a TV in every house for sure. There's a TV in most, every room in the house and in the homes you and I are building. And there's thousands and thousands of high definition TV, images to pick from. That generation that started off living with that TV in the house and saying, this is a piece, a fixture, an appliance in my house. Let's figure out how to make this better. They've taken it from 3 channels to thousands of HD channels. Think about what your kids and my kids and whoever, the kids that are growing up now that will have an iPad in their hand. What will they take that device? To think that device is going to be as primitive as a black and white 9-inch 3-channel TV was in the 1960s and 50s. It's gonna blow our minds. So being futurist and thinking about it that way, the way this stuff progresses and exponentially progresses over the past decade. I mean, we didn't have an iPhone 10 years ago, did we?
Right.
This is all flying by us so fast. And that's one of those things that this voice with everybody getting into this voice processing and AI game, this is going to be one of those technologies that just, steps up and starts to get a lot better. I mean, with Amazon, Apple's in the game, Google's in the game, Microsoft, I guess, is in the game. They have that Cortana product. Nortec is in the game.
Yeah.
This is a funny acquisition that we were reading about earlier. But I mean, there's a lot of people doing things in voice processing and natural language processing in AI these days. And that is the next system that is going to come up and just blow us all away as to what it's going to do.
Yeah, it's really heating up. And I think that, I did a piece for Residential Systems magazine this week, and I was talking about where this is all headed, and kind of the gist of that article was how it really affects the CEDIA space, which we can get into. But one of the points I made in that article, to me, really, as listeners to our show, if you've been listening for a while, you'll know that over time I've started to warm up to the idea of voice control, and it wasn't that long ago that I was pretty bearish on the idea and dismissive of it. But I think really the revelation to me came on the part of Amazon when they came out with the Echo. And I think the number one thing to me about Echo that explains its success, and you see it in Google Home, and I think you'll see it in Siri in a can, is that it is a stationary, always-on device. It does not require you to interact with a handheld remote. It doesn't require you to interact with an app. You just say what you want, and in theory, at least, it just happens. And I think as simple of a thing as that sounds like, I feel like that was really the missing piece. And Echo, just by changing that one little approach, I feel like really changed the game when it comes to voice control. And I think that's really where the revelation came, and that's really where people are going now to get used to having that functionality in their home. And it's just removed that whole friction of grabbing your iPhone out, pushing and holding on the button and waiting for Siri to prompt you. And all of that's gone. And now we can just speak, and over time be able to speak more naturally and have it pick up on what we're saying. I think the far field voice recognition is something that will just continue to get better over time, so we won't have to maybe speak as loudly or over enunciate things. And just having that always there, always listening, ready to interact with, I think is just the interesting part of voice control to me. And that, again, we don't put our futurist hat on very often and get philosophical and talk about 5 or 10 years out. But I think that to me is the big thing that kids are going to grow up being used to. I think some of the older generation is a little creeped out by that, and I totally get it. It doesn't bother me personally to have a device like that in the home, but I know some people are a little turned off by that and maybe feel like it's a little Big Brother-ish to have that in the home. I suspect that's a thing that over time people are just going to get used to and accept as part of the deal, and just won't even really over time. And increasingly, people will give that less thought, less concern. Yeah,
I mean, just look 10 years ago, and you would have asked somebody, you could have told them that, hey, in 10 years, we're all going to be, staring at our cell phones and ignoring people at dinner and, texting all the time and WeChatting and video Snapchatting and all that stuff. And they would be like, oh, that's rude. That's not going to happen. Yeah. Look around. I mean,
right.
We
or
adapt.
like, exactly. Or like 10 years ago, if you let somebody know, hey, there's going to be this company called Google that's going to know everything about you practically. And that might have seemed very concerning to people, and now we just sort of accept it. And I have a feeling that the always-on voice control aspect of the home is going to go down that same route. Like I said, not really something that crosses my radar right now or bothers me. I'm willing to sacrifice what little risk there may be that somebody somewhere is listening when I don't want them to be. I'm willing to trade that, right, for the convenience of this device. And that's really the equation that people are subconsciously going to work through. And I think increasingly fall on the side of wanting that functionality in their home.
Yeah. And I've got something to say on the creepy factor. Everybody, Google right now is a company made on like advertisements. We all know that they are trying to, if you go online and you search for, plastic penguins, I don't know why you would be searching for plastic penguins, but maybe you need some new yard ornaments.
It's a little random.
Yeah. Well, so
because there's not real penguins in Florida.
Well, exactly. We have flamingos though.
Very true. You got me there.
So you're searching for plastic penguins, and then for the next 3 weeks, you'll be enjoying ads for companies selling plastic penguins or plastic accessories for your plastic penguins. And that's, I'd be real disappointed in Google if we install these Google Home things in and they just become nothing more than just, advertisement driven machines. Like, yeah, they could have something very special for them on this. And I guess what I mean by that is like, one of the things they do in there is like, hey, order some Indian food. And it says, okay, it'll be ready for you in 10 minutes. But like, wait a minute. Nobody just says order Indian food, first off.
Yeah, exactly.
Because where's that Indian food coming from? What does, what am I ordering here? There's no such thing as that. But my only worry with Google is that, this machine that they're making, the little assistant and AI behind the scenes, only has the tie-ins to the, apps that are monetizing its AI, monetizing Google on the backside. Like, I really hope that it works a lot better than advertisements on the web do these days, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Like, it can't just work with one or two services, and just because you have that one Indian food restaurant in town that happens to integrate with Google, that can't be the only way this works, and it works for everybody. Like that may be great for the small use case, but it doesn't. Initially, it doesn't feel like that. Like, they showed a whole family, which I thought was great. It wasn't like two people walking around in a lonely apartment or anything like that. Like, it was a whole family interacting with this. So I'm really hoping that that's a good sign. Like, they figured out that people have a diverse set of needs, and each individual in the house is going to be different in what they want.
Right.
So, as far as creepy goes,
it's not just the single bachelor in San Francisco who makes $150,000 a year.
Exactly. Like, there's people who have more than one person that live in an apartment. Like, and that's
the
what
prototypical.
That's what we've seen all these Internet of Things devices come out to be. Philips Hue light bulbs are great as long as you want to take out an app and control a light. I know my wife doesn't. She wants to come in and flip a switch, and the light needs to come on.
Yeah.
So, like, that's that we need to see more products being designed around more people in the home. And I think this is what they're trying to accomplish here, and I really hope they do.
Well, speaking of that, you mentioned Philips Hue, and that's really the big question that we haven't talked specifically about. There's integrations with services that we've talked about, things like OpenTable, and I know I've seen Uber mentioned, and Instacart for groceries and that sort of thing, and of course a number of streaming music apps like Pandora and Spotify. But what I haven't seen a lot on, and what we haven't really touched on directly, is where does this fit into the smart home? Obviously, there's the Nest thing, and clearly that will be something Google has to look at. I mean, we know there's some political stuff going on there, and sorry, Seth, I know we agreed not to talk about Nest anymore.
No more Nest. # no more Nest.
Yeah. But, what else do you think this will integrate with? Like, is this going to be... There's always this talk going on in the smart home right now about interoperability, and is this going to end up taking a very closed, the walled garden approach, where they're going to try to go very deep with integrations, get those integrations to work, to be very airtight, or are they going to go more wide like Amazon Echo has done and try to get a broader ecosystem of devices working with this? And I think that'll be an interesting thing to watch. I suspect if I were a betting man, I would say it's the former, at least in the initial, run. Like, I don't suspect they're going to be just opening up really broad integrations, but I think that, we'll see the common ones, we'll see the Nests, possibly the Philips Hue, things like that. But I'll be very curious to see where this goes with a broader ecosystem of devices, because really the hardcore home tech people that really want to do smart home need interoperability and need it to be a broader ecosystem. And I just wonder if this is going to solve that need, or if this is going to be more of a walled garden approach that's great as a virtual assistant, as an AI layer to help you manage your calendar and change dinner reservations and stuff. But, how long is that really going to be useful? Is this going to open up and integrate with things like various smart lights and other thermostats and you name it. I'll be very curious to see what happens there.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Another thing to keep in mind with Google is that they are not embarrassed to outright cancel products.
Very true.
I was talking with a couple people on this on my Google Buzz account. Oh no, wait, I wasn't doing that. Maybe it was Google Wave. Nope, it wasn't Google Wave either. Well, I was listening to music on my Nexus Q. Nope, wasn't doing that either.
Nope, wasn't Nexus Q.
Yeah, so just be prepared. This. Well, all the stuff you described there, this is early days. We don't know how this integrates at all. Amazon's just figuring that out, and they're updating their SDK to work better with home control because, hey, turns out people like to talk to the Amazon Echo thing and tell it to turn on and off the lights. Maybe we should make that a little easier. Google has the advantage of seeing what Amazon's done for the last year, and they're going to be able to iterate and tack onto that. Apple, by all accounts, Apple is going to be coming out with, a Siri in a can at the WWDC in a couple weeks, and supposedly more Siri integration for third-party developers to integrate with Siri. That's going to be pretty big too. So all these companies have had, Amazon was kind of the first one in, not really the first one in. I just went back and looked at a snapshot. This is a snapshot in time. March 2nd, 2014, it was our 4th episode. And we talked with Ted Rosenberger of VoicePod. He was doing voice control on Control 4 systems way back in 2014 and before, 2013, 2012. And he was saying, hey, the voice recognition is getting a lot better through Google. It's getting a lot better through, Apple, but we're starting to use Google services to convert voices and talk into the Control 4 system at that point in time. Now, fast forward 2 years later, and we're talking about little small dedicated devices that you can talk to that will not only turn on and off your lights, that will not only change the thermostat temperature, but they'll also make your dinner reservations and change things on your calendar. I mean, this really could be a cool ecosystem down the road, no matter what platform you're on, whether you're on Amazon Echo, Siri, or Google. This could be something fun and something that's really interesting as soon as these big players start getting in and iterating on this stuff.
Well, and you make a great point that, this is everybody's talking a lot about voice control right now, and Echo always comes up in the context of being the first out of the gate, which I think is interesting because it speaks to the point I was making earlier about it was a revelation, in my opinion, what Echo did with having a stationary, always listening device, because that was really, Ted Rosenberger, like you mentioned, that's if I recall correctly, that's what their product was. It was just more
same thing. Exactly. It was
more under the radar, right? But same idea. Echo was the first one to really take that idea and put a big spotlight on it. And now everybody's seeing it and saying, hey, well, Echo is, first to market with this idea. And what idea is that, right? What are we actually talking about? Because the idea of voice control has been around for a long time. Siri, Cortana, Google's whatever they're calling it now. I can never keep track. But the idea of voice control is not new. It's the form factor that's new. It's that always on, ever-present, helpful device that's just sitting there ready for you when you need it. That's the new part. And I think that shouldn't be lost on people. I think that's really important to remember. And that's one of the points I made in my article that I alluded to earlier on residential systems, is that as a CDIA integrator and somebody who's looking at all of this and trying to figure out, okay, well, what does this mean to the profession of home technology? What's the significance and where do I fit into this equation? And I'm just looking at the initiatives that are currently being aimed at the CDIA market. And there's not a whole lot of them, but none of them have this sort of form factor. And that's, I think, going to be the key, is who can come aim at the CDIA market with some sort of solution that differentiates a little bit, or, do we need that even? That's another question. But if somebody wanted to come with a proprietary solution aimed at the CDIA market, I think it's just so crystal clear to me what they need to be looking at, and it's the form factor. It's not the idea of voice control per se. It's how do we interact with it. I think that, to me, is the critical point here that everybody needs to be thinking about.
Yeah, and I think if the CDIA market, if somebody did come out with a voice control assistant with AI built onto it, and tried to make it proprietary, I think they missed the mark. Honestly, like, there's so much more information and iteration that can happen on the scale that Google is working on than can even come close to, you know, some of the larger companies like Control4 or Crestron. Like, the install base on this little product right here in the first 3 months will outsell Control4 and Crestron combined for the lifetime of their products, period. Like, that's going to happen. We know that happened from the Nest sales. So I guarantee you, when these things start shipping, they will ship more of these little hubs, ding, than, you know, Control4 and Crestron ever dreamed of shipping. And I'm sorry, like, if somebody in the CI world is thinking that they're going to do better than what Amazon or Google has done, I think they have a severe problem sticking their head in the sand, because there's not much more better you can get with, you know, voice processing than what Google is offering. I mean, even Ted was saying that back in 2014.
Yeah.
You know, that their apps were working a lot better than the little devices that they have always on devices, but they were having to use kind of the basically the little voice processor that was inside your car where you make, you know, hands-free dialing attempts. They were using the same thing there, and they were saying, look, it's the near field technology in the phones. It's so much better than what we can offer. That Amazon took that. They took really good voice processing. They put a decent little product together and they shipped it, and it worked really well. And I just think if someone attempts that for CEDIA only market, I think they miss the mark, and they miss the point of having something that actually integrates outside of what we're doing. I think our market's got to open up a little, and I don't think that doing a proprietary voice control system is going to help it any.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I certainly, when I talk about if there was a proprietary initiative aimed at CEDIA, I don't necessarily think that it's something we need per se. I think that integrations with Google, Amazon Echo, presumably Apple soon, I think that's going to be the more realistic way to go about it. But what I am saying, and, you know, let me say this, if somebody gave me $1 million right now and said, invest in a company, investing in a voice control solution aimed specifically at CEDIA wouldn't be where I would put my money, flat out. Now, with that said, I do think that it's conceivable to me that somebody could come to market with a product that could see some success aimed at just the CEDIA industry. It would be an ultra high-end type of installation. It would be the residences in Los Angeles and New York and Miami and maybe a few other markets. You know, it's not going to be a mainstream product. And the selling points I think you could look at would be, as we always go back to currently in our line of work, it's about the aesthetics on those really high-end jobs. It's about the flexibility of being able to integrate it with the crazy curveball idea that your super rich client throws at you, and how are you going to make that work? It's about, you know, maybe integrated microphones that can be hidden in areas where you don't have these big devices on your countertops, that sort of thing. I think in the ultra high end or even the high end, it's feasible to me. Now, I'm not, again, saying that I think it's a great business strategy, but I think that if you were looking at the CEDIA space and you did want to make a run at a differentiated voice control product, those are the things I would look at. And I think that for the rest of us, for the broad majority of the market, what we really need in the CEDIA space, Seth, I would agree with you wholeheartedly, is a more open approach and integrations with, you know, companies like Lutron and recently announced integration with Echo, which is a great thing. We need more of that. But, you know, the problem with that is that a product like Google Home, we have no idea if they're going to embrace those sort of integrations. And so it's just going to end up being this a house divided, so to speak, and you're going to have a great design put together to do a home technology implementation for a client, and then they're going to come and say, hey, what's this Google Home thing, and how can I use it in my house? And you're going to have to say, we can't, like, right, per se. You can do other stuff with it, but like this, you know, $30,000 AV system that I'm selling you, like, there's not much I can do with it. And that's the awkward, uncomfortable conversation that I'm not looking forward to. And so my piece for residential systems was sort of a call to action to the CEDIA market, manufacturers and integrators alike, to really think long and hard about how we're going to deal with these products and where do we fit into that equation.
No, all good stuff. And I agree 100%. I think what you and I are both would be advocating for in this situation would be like a Google Home Pro or,
right.
A Siri Pro or something that had the ability to integrate, high end flush mount microphones. How cool would that be? Like,
exactly
to do a system like that's just completely integrated into the walls of the house, and maybe change the color of the keypads on the walls, if it's listening or not. How that would be awesome. But since this technology is so consumer facing and so very new, I don't know if we're going to get that for a while. I don't know if it's going to be a
or ever.
Who knows? I mean, Google's been doing this Android stuff for a while, and you're now seeing Control 4 have integrated, their processors are all Android based now. You're seeing that all the touchscreens that they have are all Android based. It's not a stretch to imagine that to see other home automation initiatives be built on the Android stack. I mean, it makes sense. So who knows? Maybe down the road there'll be a Google Home Pro package that makes sense, and we can integrate into our fancy $30,000+ systems.
Exactly. I just think that if there were going to be a place in the market for a higher end differentiated experience, those are the bullet points I would look at. Something that you can blend in very seamlessly with the aesthetic in a high end home, ultra flexible to make sure that it can work with whatever crazy system, HVAC system, pool control, some of the more esoteric things that we do in professional home technology and integration, right? We're out there integrating things that aren't meant to be integrated together. And clearly that's not something that the mainstream consumer needs, and not something they're ever going to really want or need per se. And so I think there is room for both, theoretically. Now, I don't think that we'll see that anytime soon in the CEDIA market, or perhaps anytime ever. I think that the more immediate need is to figure out, okay, what are we doing with these products? Apple's going to come soon with one. It's, I think, all but guaranteed at this point. I feel like they have to. I know we were talking about that a few weeks ago, and you were speculating that you thought Apple would come out with the hashtag Siri in a can at WWDC this year, which is coming up in June. And at the time I had said I didn't expect it at WWDC, but I thought that it would come soon. And I don't know. Now I'm second guessing myself, Seth. I got to say that the things are just getting so hot and heavy now, and we're starting to see articles about Apple coming to market with something. And so I can't say that I would be surprised if we did see something this June from Apple.
Yeah, and I only did that as a hedge. I said only unless if they come out with the Siri in a can thing just to get a laugh. And turns out
here we are.
We may see Siri in a can. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about one other piece that we didn't talk about, and that's just the pure audio side of it. We've compared it to Echo a lot, and I think it's a good thought exercise to compare it to. I think Google's got the edge there with this being built by the Chromecast team. I think they're going to have a lot of flexibility to integrate this easily with a lot of different streaming services, and really anything that's built already to use Chromecast will plug right into this thing basically out of the gate, as I understand it. And I think that will be an advantage for Google Home. The video that we alluded to that showed some of the use cases showed the owner, the first thing he did is said, hey, play my morning playlist, and then turn the music on in all rooms of the house. And like that sounds like a small thing, but is so, I mean, it's so useful. And my clients, I would use that. It just is easy. Hey, play me some rock music, play it in the living room, play it in the family room. Boom. That's what people want. And so I think that if Google can execute on that, that's your entry level. That's the gateway drug, right? I
would use it tomorrow. I mean, honestly, I would take Sonos out and use it tomorrow. It's yep. That. Why would I need to pull out my phone, find the Sonos app? Because God knows I have 80 some odd apps on my phone. I can never find anything, so I got to search for it. I got to type in Sonos. Oh, there's the Sonos app. Click it. Wait for it to launch. By now, I could have said, "Hey, play my playlist," and boom, the thing is
yep.
done. I mean that's a killer app, and Siri's been pushing that too. So I think that's going to be, Apple Music and Siri, those have been integrated so well together to the point where you can say, I was listening to somebody say today, play me the Glee version of this song, of the Glee Fox television show. Play me that version of this song, and they'll play it. Like it's that good. So, I think that between Google and Siri, Amazon, I still have problems with. I still say, hey, play this artist or this song, and it either says it can't find it, and then I have to kind of attack it at a different angle, say a word a little bit differently, and sometimes it finally finds the song that I know it should have on there and play, because I played it yesterday. Why doesn't it play it again?
Well, and then you find yourself doing the math in your head, right? You're going to play music, and now you're going, okay, well, is it going to work if I do the voice thing? Forget it. I'll just open the app or whatever. And that's, a lot of that creates drag on voice control just in general.
Friction.
It's friction. And so that's always the key with voice control is getting it to work right and getting it to work reliably. But I just think that it's such an easy sell to people. Like if I could just get up in the morning and say, hey, play so-and-so podcast and just have it come on while I'm taking a shower and getting ready for work, I would use that every single day. I would. Whereas right now, we've got the Bluetooth speakers and Sonos and whatever. And like you said, I always feel so silly saying it. It's such a first world problem to be like, oh, I got to open the app and wait for it. Oh my, this is horrible. But at the end of the day, everybody's busy. We're all consumed with so many different things and running around. And it's like that little bit of friction is enough to just make you not use things. And so I think that's really, it speaks to the potential of voice control.
Yep. Potential and friction. I think those are the two words of the night.
Potential friction.
Yeah, potential friction. Well, Jason, this has been fun. I got to say, we covered a lot of ground just on talking voice control tonight. I've got to go put together my Google Pro Home device that I've been talking about, because I know a guy. Yeah, I know a guy in Denver that has $1 million he wants to invest.
Yeah, right. Shoot me an email. We'll get it going.
Wink, wink. Yeah.
But no, this was fun. I think that we were sitting down and we'd been communicating and trying to figure out what we were going to talk about this week. And really it was a no-brainer with Google Home. And we saw a couple other stories about the Siri in a can and just, it's such a hot topic right now. I enjoyed just chatting about voice control with you. And it's 2016 clearly is shaping up to be the year of voice control. And I was thinking as we were talking tonight, I can't remember if any of us made that prediction. We had our fireside chat with the Technology.fm guys and made some predictions about what 2016 would be. And I can't remember. I'll have to go back and listen, but I don't know if any of us predicted that it would be the year of voice control, but it clearly seems to be shaping up that way.
Yeah, I think Mike had something to say about Amazon really pushing out their services, and he's been totally right on that. But I don't think I definitely wasn't thinking this. I don't think any of us were thinking that Apple would be in the little small form factor device game, or Google would come out with something this year. And wow, it's honestly the keynote for Google. Everything they're doing is awesome. Like I've not been an Android fan. I've not been a very big Google fan, but from a software side, these guys are nailing it. This was the best keynote I think I've seen Google do in years. And they nailed the rest of the stuff. Is just amazing what these guys and girls put together. They're in California or around the world. The Google ecosystem is certainly shaping up to be something very interesting. And yeah. It's something that we weren't thinking about definitely at the beginning of the year. And here we are, sitting here in May talking about Google and Google Home. This is a really cool time.
Interesting time indeed. Well, with that, let's wrap it up. Want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. We really appreciate having you as a listener. If you enjoy the Home Tech Podcast and you want to help support us in making more shows like this, please consider becoming a patron. You can learn more about that if you go to HomeTech.fm/support. And that's a way that you can financially back the show for as little as $1 a month. Help buy Seth a cup of coffee to work through those late night post-production sessions. we'd really appreciate that. And if you can't do it financially, we totally understand, but we'd love to have you stop by iTunes and leave us a review. We'd be more than happy to get your feedback on that, good, bad, or otherwise. And we just really appreciate you taking the time to let us know how we're doing. Yep,
definitely. Well, I guess that wraps up the show this week. I think you're going to have some house projects to start documenting and getting ready to do.
Yeah, I'm going to have my hands full. I think that probably maybe 1 or 2 shows in June I may have to sit out. We've been talking about that, but we're going to try to get some shows out definitely and keep it going. But it's going to be a busy summer for me. And I definitely, once I get settled into the home and start having a little bit of bandwidth to take a look at what's going on technology-wise at the time, I will definitely keep you and the Home Tech audience posted.
Sounds great, man. Good talking with you tonight, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good, Seth. Take care.